Good evening. Settle into a place where you feel safe, calm, and warm. Tonight, I will take you on a long journey, a journey across the vast stretch of human history. This is not a story of kings alone, nor just of battles and crowns, but of people. People like you and me, who lived in different ages, who struggled, who dreamed, who changed the course of the world. We will begin long ago, before empires, before cities, in a time when the very survival of our kind was never guaranteed. So, take a slow breath, let your eyes grow heavy, and let us step together into the ancient past. The harsh world of prehistoric humanity. Imagine the earth. Tens of thousands of years ago, the air is colder than today. Forests stretch vast and dark, while open plains are swept by bitter winds. Gigantic animals roam the land, mammoths, woolly rhinos, saber-toothed cats, and among them walk small bands of humans. They are vulnerable, fragile compared to the beasts around them. Their weapons are simple, sharpened stone, a fire carried in embers, the strength of their voices raised together in warning calls. Each day is a test. Food is never certain. One failed hunt can mean hunger. One moment of carelessness can mean death. And yet, they endure, because they are not alone. They endure together. Cooperation and survival in this world. No one survives by themselves. The lone hunter is quickly taken by cold or claw. But the group endures. One watches while the others sleep. One gathers while another tends the fire. Hands pass food from the skilled hunter to the youngest child. These bonds, invisible yet unbreakable, are the true tools of survival. It is here, in the cold and danger of prehistory, that humanity's greatest gift reveals itself. The ability to cooperate, to share. To imagine together. Now picture a cave, its walls warmed by the glow of fire. Outside, the winds howl, but inside there is safety. Children sit close to their elders, eyes wide with wonder. On the walls, painted in ochre and charcoal, are shapes of animals, the hunt frozen in lines of color. And as the flames dance, a voice rises. The first stories are spoken, tales of mighty hunts, tales of ancestors who braved the forest, tales that teach where to find water, when to fear the sky, and how to honor the beasts that give their lives for food. These stories are more than entertainment. They are survival itself, carried not in bones or blood, but in memory. Here, in the firelight, culture is born. But peace is fragile. Listen closely. Beyond the crackle of fire, the faint rustle in the dark, the low growl of a hungry predator. Wolves, lions, bears, creatures that stalk the edges of the camp. The humans know them well. Fear keeps them awake. Vigilant, a torch flares, a spear is raised, voices cry out together, and the beasts retreat. For now, each night is a contest, a balance of courage and fear, of vigilance and exhaustion. To survive is to never truly rest, and yet they endure, because hope burns as brightly as the fire. With each passing generation, skill grows. The rough stone becomes the sharpened blade. The thrown rock becomes the crafted spear. The ember becomes a blazing fire. Human hands are clever hands, shaping the world around them, and with tools, the balance shifts. The prey becomes easier to catch. The predator, easier to drive away. No longer is humanity merely surviving. It is adapting, bending nature slowly, subtly, to its will. And though these early steps seem small, they are the first steps on a road that leads to cities, to empires, to civilizations, yet unimagined. As the centuries pass, humans gather in larger numbers, no longer scattered bands, but small villages, by rivers, by fertile valleys, by the shores of great lakes. Here, food can be stored, tools can be passed down, children grow among not just parents, but whole communities. Kinship deepens. Tradition grows thicker. The bonds of family extend into the bonds of tribe. And though life is still fragile, though storms and hunger and war are never far, something new begins to stir. The first glimpses of society. And so, from firelight to field, from stone to village, humanity's path unfolds. Each struggle overcome leaves behind a lesson. Each hardship shapes strength. And in time, the scattered bands of hunters will give rise to mighty kingdoms. Empires will rise from dust and fall back into it. But the core remains the will to survive, to adapt, to imagine together. Our journey has only begun. And from the smoke of prehistory, we will now turn to the shining domes of Constantinople, where a young woman named Theodora will rise from obscurity to become one of the most powerful empresses in history. Let us leave behind the smoke of Prehistory. The fires of the hunter's camp fade, and before us rises a new sight, a city of stone and marble, golden domes glittering under the sun. This is Constantinople, the beating heart of the Byzantine Empire, a place where East and West meet, where merchants carry silk from China, spices from India, and gold from Africa, where priests chant in echoing churches, and soldiers march along high, unbroken walls. Here, life is vibrant and loud, and within this city, a girl is born. Her name is Theodora. Theodora's beginning was not noble. She was not born into palaces, nor cradled in riches. Her father worked with animals, a keeper for the circus of the Hippodrome, the great arena of the city, where crowds roared for races and spectacles. Her mother struggled to feed her daughters after her husband's early death. Theodora grew up in the shadows of wealth she could never touch, in hunger, in hardship, in humiliation. And yet, even as a child, her eyes were sharp. She watched, she listened, she learned. She understood that survival, here as in prehistory, required resilience, wit, and unshakable courage. As she grew, Theodora turned to the stage. In Byzantium, actresses were both admired and scorned. They wore bright costumes, told stories, danced for the people. But they were also looked down upon, whispered about, treated as lesser. Theodora played her part in this world, first out of necessity, later out of ambition. She traveled with performers across the empire, facing ridicule, danger, and loneliness. It was a hard life, and yet, through every insult, every setback, Theodora endured. Like the hunters by firelight, she learned that stories carry power, and she, too, would one day use her voice to shape the destiny of others. After years of struggle, Theodora's life began to change. She left behind the theater. She sought quiet work, spinning wool, living simply. She traveled far, even reaching the great cities of North Africa and the Holy Land. It was a time of reflection, of transformation. By the time she returned to Constantinople, she was no longer merely a poor actress. She was a woman who had seen the world, endured its cruelties, and sharpened her spirit into steel. And waiting for her in the city was a man whose own destiny was about to unfold. Justinian, a man of ambition, born in a village, but destined to wear the crown of the Eastern Roman Empire. When he met Theodora, she was not the obvious choice for a future empress. But Justinian saw what others missed. He saw her intelligence, her determination, her ability to read people, to cut through deception, to see clearly where others were blinded. And so, despite the protests of courtiers, despite the whispers of nobles, Justinian married her. Together, they became partners, not only in love, but in rule. For in Theodora, Justinian found not a consort, but an equal. The year was 5-7. The great cathedral of Hagia Sophia echoed with chants. The empire watched as Justinian was crowned emperor, and beside him, Theodora, now empress. Her rise was astonishing. From the dust of poverty to the throne of Byzantium, and she did not sit quietly in the background. Theodora spoke in council. She advised in matters of law. She defended her place with the strength of someone who had known hunger, scorn, and loss. The poor actress had become one of the most powerful women in the world. Yet power brings danger. In 532, Constantinople erupted in chaos. The Nika riots began with disputes in the Hippodrome, but quickly grew into rebellion. Crowds filled the streets, setting fire to palaces, churches, and markets. Justinian faltered. He considered fleeing, but Theodora stood unshaken. She addressed the court with words that burned like iron. Royalty is a fine burial shroud. If we must perish, let us perish as rulers, not fugitives. Her resolve gave Justinian the strength to act. The army struck back. The city was reclaimed, and the throne held firm. It was Theodora's courage, her refusal to yield, that saved the empire. Beyond moments of crisis, Theodora shaped Byzantium in quieter, lasting ways. She championed reforms for women, for the vulnerable, for those often ignored by the empire's rulers. Laws were passed to prevent the trafficking of young women. Protections were offered to actresses and those in professions scorned by society. She supported the building of shelters for the poor. She gave strength to voices that had long been silenced. Her own past, her suffering, her struggles became the foundation for justice. Theodora remembered what it was to be powerless, and she used her throne to ensure others would not remain so. As years passed, Theodora's health began to fail. But even in illness, she continued her work. Her faith remained steady, her influence undiminished. When she died in 548, at perhaps only 48 years of age, the empire mourned, but her presence lingered. In the mosaics of Ravenna, her image shines, still regal, serene, eternal. A woman who rose from nothing, who faced the storm of empire, who carved her name into history. Theodora, Empress, Reformer, Survivor. And so, from the firelit caves to the golden halls of Byzantium, we have traveled far. Our story now turns westward, into medieval Europe, where not the clash of swords, but the steps of dancers reveal the power of culture, status, and subtle politics. 4. Even in the quiet movement of a courtly dance, history is written. Imagine now a castle hall in Europe. Centuries after Theodora's reign, stone walls rise high above. Tapestries hang heavy with color. Candles flicker in iron chandeliers, throwing warm light across polished floors. Here, nobles gather, not for battle, but for celebration. Music drifts through the air, soft and ordered, guiding footsteps across the floor. This is the world of courtly dance, a world where movement itself becomes a language, a silent conversation of power, grace, and ambition. In the beginning, dance was simple. Villagers gathered in open squares, moving to drums and pipes, stamping feet in joy, leaping in rhythm. But within the courts of Europe, something changed. Dance became refinement, each step codified, each gesture measured. It was no longer only for celebration, but for display, to show one's breeding, to demonstrate control, poise, elegance. And so the rustic joy of village dance evolved into a highly structured ritual, one that could shape alliances, whisper affection, or declare rivalry, all without a single word spoken. At the heart of this transformation stood the dance masters. Respected, even feared, they trained nobles in posture, grace, and etiquette. To stumble was not merely a clumsy step. It was a stain upon honor. To dance well was to prove worth. And so, dance masters shaped more than movement. They shaped politics. They determined who could dazzle the court, who might catch the eye of a king, who might rise in favor, and who might fall. In these steps, society was mirrored. A bow was not only politeness, but submission. A hand extended in dance was not merely courtesy, but a question, sometimes of alliance, sometimes of love. Eyes met, across the floor. Promises whispered, through the pattern of movement. To the untrained eye, it was only music and motion. But, to those who lived within these walls, it was a stage upon which ambition, romance, and rivalry all performed together. Here, culture and power intertwined, shaping the rhythm of medieval life. But while noble courts danced in careful circles, another rhythm beat beyond their walls. The steady splash of oars, the creak of wooden hulls, the war cries of the north. For in the year 800, warriors from distant Scandinavia turned their gaze toward one of the greatest cities of the Frankish realm, Paris, and at their head was Ragnar Lothbrok. Spring came, and with it, the Vikings. From the sea they rode, into the mouth of the Seine, long ships cutting through the waters with terrifying speed. They came not in dozens, but in hundreds. Paris, rich and proud upon the river's banks, had never seen such a force approach. The people looked to their walls for safety. The bells of churches rang in alarm, and the shadow of the dragon-headed ships fell across the city. The siege began. The Vikings cut the city off, using the river as their weapon. They burned the suburbs, destroying churches and farms. Fear spread through the people. The Franks resisted, their King Charles the Bold summoning every defense. But the Vikings pressed on, their fury relentless, their numbers overwhelming. The city shuddered beneath their assault, and the people trembled as famine and fire closed in. In the end, Paris did not fall to fire and sword, it fell to silver. Ragnar Lothbrok, cunning as he was fierce, agreed to lift the siege in exchange for a ransom. 7,000 pounds of silver, a fortune so vast it had to be carried in carts. And so the Vikings departed, not defeated, but enriched. Their victory echoed across Europe, a warning of what was to come. Paris survived, but the age of Viking raids had only begun. From the hunters of prehistory, to the Empress of Byzantium, to the nobles who danced in candlelit halls, to the Vikings who besieged Paris. History is a tapestry, each thread, woven from struggle and triumph, fear and courage, loss and resilience. Though the centuries change, one truth endures: humanity survives, adapts, and carries forward the memory of all who came before. And now, our journey draws to a close. Let the echoes of these stories settle gently in your mind. The struggles of hunters, the strength of Theodora, the grace of dancers, the fury of Vikings, they are all part of the great human story, a story that stretches endlessly across time. As you rest tonight, know that you, too, are part of this tapestry. You carry within you the same resilience, the same courage, the same spark that has guided our kind from firelit caves to shining cities. So close your eyes, let the rhythm of history become the rhythm of your breath, and drift into sleep, peaceful and timeless, as the story continues in dreams.